the ruling by Justice Mativo and the interpretation that IEBC took, you say that this should not have included all the other candidates. From the memo that was sent yesterday night by IEBC, they say they're including everyone. But we know from the latest developments, one of the candidates, like Cyrus Jirongo, has been declared bankrupt. Yes. I mean,
yeah, and that is part of the challenge and fault people are having in such a memo. I mean, the court, in its pronunciation, did not give a blanket order to include everyone in the ballot. And if you read the memo, it's the press statement, as we may call it, it also very clearly indicated that not everyone who participated last time is being forced to. But if you feel like withdrawing, you can since withdraw. Yeah. But these are some of the problems you're having by the IEBC going ahead and doing such a step. Now, the implication of being bankrupt in Kenya is not only that you cannot vie for president, you cannot even operate a business, you cannot even be employed, the basic things. I mean, being bankrupt is like being found insane, to be of insane mind. So these are some of the challenges that IEBC must address, and we are looking forward to clarification in regards to this statement. As for me, as I said, I'd really not like to talk much on the statement because I have issues with the validity in terms of authenticity. Yeah, it has to be verifiable. And these are lessons they should have learned from the Supreme Court.
Can anyone go to court with the... and can anyone take IEBC to court with regard, including all the candidates in this particular election?
Most probably that this should now be an appeal to this decision. In constitutional petitions. IEBC. Even citizens are allowed to appeal on that. But from the news that I've heard here is that IEBC might appeal and Jubilee as well might be part of the appeal. But in the interest of time and really, if we are to have the elections within the 60 days framework, we do not really have time for appeals. And because someone might appeal, then the appeal also proceeds to the Supreme Court, and we have very strict timeline. I mean, I think, is it 13 days to go? These are very strict timelines. But to answer your question, yes, someone can challenge. But now, for the good of the nation and for the purposes of having an election, I think this is something that should come to an end.
There's something that Kenyans have been debating on social media platforms and beyond, the issue of Raila Odinga withdrawing and the questions around Form 24A that he's expected to have signed. And we know that IEBC says Raila will be in the ballot as well. I just want you to make that a bit clearer for our audience.
Yes, the election regulations in Regulation 52 talks of a candidate, provides for a candidate to withdraw in the case of change of interest. Now, a candidate is expected to withdraw within 3 days of nomination. Now, in this scenario, we find ourselves in a position that Raila Odinga announced his abandonment, as people now call it, from the race. I think, was it Tuesday?
Yes.
And this ruling was yesterday. Now, there's a lot of interpretation in this, but we might just ask ourselves very simple question, just from the same judgment of Justice Mativo. Now, Justice Mativo sought to interpret the 2013 decision from paragraph 289 to 293. Now, 289 talks of candidates, nomination of candidates, and Justice Mativo, even when saying that the rights of Okot and the other were infringed, said that in the event of invalidation and pronunciation of fresh elections, then the Commission cannot hold fresh nominations. Now, the issue here is fresh nominations. When was nomination held? That's the question Kenyans need to ask ourselves. Has IEBC in their press statement done fresh nominations? And if they have, when do we start counting the 3 days? So for me, I think the invitation by IEBC is a rhetoric. For me, the time for nomination has since passed. And we cannot expect that the Honorable Raila Odinga to be asked to sign the prescribed Form 24A to indicate his withdrawal. So my interpretation of this is basically IEBC is telling the Honorable Raila Odinga that his name will be on the ballot, whether he likes it or not.
But the man has said he will not be vying. I mean, where does this place NASA? this whole IEBC is saying this, NASA is saying this, IEBC seemingly taking a stand that your name will be on the ballot, you've not signed Form 24A that you were expected to sign. So as far as we are concerned,
yes,
you are running.
I mean, somebody should also ask IEBC when they did their nomination. And they did their nomination way, way back. This leaves the quest for NASA, according to my understanding, politically speaking, is still on. Legally speaking, we might end up having an election with Raila Odinga's name on the ballot, but the candidate will since have boycotted the election.
Yes. Talking of a boycott, we know the Constitution says that a presidential election has to be held in all the 290 constituencies. If at all, like you say, Raila Odinga's name would be on the ballot, but he urges his people to boycott this election. What kind of scenarios would we be expecting?
Now, there are a number of scenarios, and there are a number of grounds that an election can be nullified, yes, as seen previously in the recent court ruling. But if Raila goes ahead and urges supporters not to vote, it might bring a challenge, because in the constitutional, I think under Article 136, does not even talk about there being an election in every constituency, but they talk of participation. So how does one participate in an election? Participation is through voting. So yes, in an event that people do not end up voting, then they might argue under the same laws and say that they did not participate in that election. That is the first scenario. Secondly, there might end up being acts of maybe intimidation and bribery and you know, all kind of things. So this is also another ground that if it might end up that voters have been intimidated, in that maybe the Kenya police goes ahead and provides tight security in the perceived NASA stronghold, and you know, sort of show some sort of intimidation to the voter, then anyone can go to court and challenge and say that intimidation was there. Then there might also be people not, you know, there are those innocent Kenyans who will want to vote, and maybe, God forbid, there might be acts of violence for those who maybe would want them not to participate in the election. But this is not a situation that we may want to see ourselves in. These are things that I think need to be urgently addressed. I think we just need political goodwill from both sides for us to go lacking. Yes.
Collins Mango is a constitutional lawyer. Thank you very much for joining us here on KTN News Desk. We continue to try and understand all these articles of the law being quoted by all the sides, by the IEBC, by NASA, by Jubilee, even by other political parties. And of course, we continue to track the developments as they happen. 13 days to go to the election. The IEBC has a huge task lying, or we could say the ball now lies on their court.